Hi, and happy Tuesday. Today, my content is titled, It's Contribute, Not Attribute. And so, what I'm getting at is there's a quote that I appreciate by Tim Keller, who's the pastor of Redeemer in New York City. And he says, The problem with self esteem, whether it is high or low, is that every single day we are in the courtroom. And I think that that's really an amazing quote that brings me to this conversation that I've been touching upon, where I said work is contribution. So in previous videos, I've talked about the fact that when we work, we're really finding a means or a niche or a way to contribute with our experiences, talents, gifts, education, whatever we've been able to build up as a tool belt. And then we're finding a way to take those tools and make them into some form of work to contribute. Interestingly, throughout history, back in the agricultural days, this was in the agricultural age, this was a very normal and simple understanding, because ultimately your value was in the way in which you contributed to the group. So if you worked on a farm, or if you were a craftswoman of sorts, or a stay-at-home mom, or whatever your position was, it was in the format of how you contributed to the group in which you lived, your community, your village, and the people that you were dependent upon and who were dependent upon you. So as history rolls out, though, we move from agricultural to industrial age, where mass production starts to bring about the division of labor. And all of a sudden, instead of being the person who is building a boot from start to finish as a craftsman, or being a farmer who's able to barter, cauliflower for tomatoes or something, where your value was in this sort of exchange of goods and, demand bringing supply. Then we get into the mass production, where products are being produced on a large scale, and all of a sudden you are now, one piece of a production line. You are the person who puts the little piece on the bottom of the sole of the shoe, as opposed to building the whole shoe, to simplify the concept. Then we move into the knowledge age, and ultimately we start to become recognized for our specializations and our individualism, and how we stand out in our skill sets, as opposed to how we contribute to the small group in which we were dependent upon and who depended upon us. So we become more focused on specialization and individualism, and start to build, resumes based upon, all our really fancy tools, so it's no longer about how these tools serve the others. It's like, oh, my tools are much shinier than your tools. And so, I'm the right person for the job, or I need to stand out. I need to, dog eat dog world type of mentality. And, welcome to 2021. So what I'm getting at is that it's still all contribution. And I've discussed this, and I think that's not hard to wrap your head around. This is not like a new idea. This is not revolutionary. It's just a shift in the lens, in realizing, oh, okay, so we're still just ultimately working for contribution. And we all still have that inner place, that inner need to be accepted and to be valued. And all of that really just means love and appreciation, when you boil it down to like what humanity is really looking for when in purpose. So we're still always looking for a verdict. We are always in the courtroom. Like Tim Keller said, life is just one big courtroom. And the thing is that if there's no customer, there's no money. And if there's no money, there's no contribution. So the way that, we've kind of created this kind of delusion around what's really happening isn't helpful. And so I think that first and foremost is important to realize, okay, it is contribution, and we've just gone from what was a very tangible and visual exchange of value to this kind of more separated delusional version of exchange of value and being competitive with one another. The thing is that what that means is like the concept of a courtroom or needing a verdict of being accepted means that in a courtroom, you show evidence, right? So you bring your evidence to be like, this is how valuable I am. This is why I am, the best person for the job, or the best person, period, the value that I'm looking for. I have evidence of that. And so what we've done is, in today's society, we're showing evidence in these dimensions of wellness. So it's like, these are shiny, look at how good I am. Whatever area we're trying to show, it's like, this is the evidence. So the courtroom is on and we're looking for a verdict. We need to be accepted for our contribution ultimately. And we've switched it from how we contribute to others to, I've been contributing and it's looking very good. And so what we're starting to sell is that results are all that matters. So, and the results are what's happening around here. And so this is great. And so I'm looking shiny, so I'm the right person. I'm the most valuable, shiny trophy, right? Whereas if we actually think about what contribute was at the beginning, what it actually is how are you contributing to others? And so shining your shiny exterior isn't ultimately contributing to someone else. Like I said in my last video, your success doesn't help me in my trial. And so when we realize that, like, shining the evidence to try to get the verdict of contribution, it's really quite backwards. It's like going from a demand and supply mentality to a supply and demand mentality in our own little way of existing for value, where we're like, oh, my supply is why you should accept me. My supply is why you should, value me and give me the acceptance and the love and appreciation that I'm looking for. Whereas what we originally are saying is that work is contribution. So it's really like, what am I giving you to help you in your situation? And so when we get to the idea of switching from results to how we live our lives, and in my world, that comes to how we use our personal resources. It's very natural to understand that how we use our resources is the only blueprint and the only gift that we can actually give to contribute to someone else. And so understanding the foundation of resources is like what I believe in, how I actively believe in something that then carries itself out in my resources to action. And that ultimately is my method of overcoming trials, sorrows, failures, struggles, anything that I've encountered in my life, and how I've used my resources to find a way in action to live from one side of that trial through it to the other side of that trial is something that I can help pass to someone else as a contribution. And when you realize that, it's also not selling your specific step by step, like, okay, I was struggling in my business. And so I quite literally, step 1, took an accounting analysis. Step 2, and going through these blueprints like that in terms of actions, it really needs to be on a deeper level because, like I said, I shared something in my stories earlier today about the fact that there's nothing new under the sun, so ultimately we are the unique product in life. And so knowing that no one's circumstances are the same. So my blueprint isn't going to be perfect for your blueprint. My blueprint is, all of these details of how I use my resources given my environment, my circumstances, my opportunities, all of the assets that I've been given from, products and services that are at my disposal. The fact that I live on the North Fork of Long Island versus maybe, in India, or I don't live even as close as Florida, every blueprint is unique. And so my most valuable contribution is the resources and how those resources can be utilized. to overcome a weakness. And then allowing someone to be able to take that understanding and use it in their own trial with their own recipe, right? So they have a very different environment or very different circumstances, and they then can maybe transfer the use of resources into their own understanding. And it really does, I believe, in an inside out mentality, like I'm always talking about, really being the journey here is helping people from a state of belief and helping them go from core values and a belief system that then carry into the use of resources. And so, my biggest thing is that if you're selling the evidence, then it's basically like half-baked goods. You're not selling anyone anything that's useful. And so if you want to live a great life, then you need to find the way to pull yourself out of yourself and out of the mentality of contribution is really about building a tribute to myself, and learn and understand what really can be contribution, and finding the way to humble, to be able to be open and share the use of your resources in a way that can be transferable to others. And it really does boil down to that core belief that really drives everything moving forward. So I hope that is just an interesting view of looking at contribution and understanding that that's really what we're all in. We might as well still be in the agricultural age. It's just that we are selling in the knowledge age. And so knowledge certainly doesn't mean like I'm giving you the knowledge of how my dimensions are beautiful and how shiny they are. No, I'm giving the knowledge of how to use your resources to try to get through similar trials and get through similar struggles and understand that this is what life is. And life is about trials and overcoming them and finding a core belief that helps us to actually do that. And then sharing that and transferring that with one another, linking with trials. So I hope everyone's having a great Tuesday and look forward to talking again soon.